Okay, welcome to another Weekend No Show. My name is JG. I'm here with my boy CL Smooth. What's up, man?
What's good, family?
Hey, y'all. Insidious LAT is out on a secret mission this week, so he won't be with us. It'll just be me and my boy Smooth. But today we are going to be talking about the Tinder Swindler. And I know it might seem a little bit late, but if you remember, we had a previous episode regarding true crime where we discussed its popularity with women. And, our various thoughts was that all of us, we didn't really care for the true crime, but we did consistently bring up the Tinder Swindler in that was probably the level of true crime that we could deal with. And this particular documentary, which was on Netflix, was handled in a way that I felt was a little bit upbeat, if I would even say that. I mean, let me just ask you, Smooth, what did you think about the Tinder Swindler?
Well, first, pardon me, family. I had to pour a glass of wine for this one, so hold on a second.
Wine and crime.
Yeah. Man, so many things to say about this documentary. Very entertaining documentary. I want to start with this statement because I know I'm going to piss some people off by the end of this show. But I want to start with this. This guy definitely threatened these women. You listen to his like voice messages and some of the different kind of threats that he made. It implied, potential violence or harm to them and their families at certain points when he got mad at them. And I don't condone that in any way, shape, or form. He should definitely be punished for that, right? Legal ramifications for making those threats, no doubt. And I say that because as we get into this topic, I'm going to have some critiques. I'm going to say some things that I'm sure a lot of women are not going to like. But I don't support any kind of violence towards anybody, and I don't support those kind of threats. So
Yeah.
Let me start with that. But my whole thought with this, JG, was what's the difference between what the Tinder Swindler did and women nowadays who are going out on foodie dates? You heard about foodie dates?
Oh yeah. I heard it.
So they go out, no real interest in the guy that they're dating, but they want a fancy meal, and the guy's left holding the bag, and there's nothing happening after that. And women would say, well, I don't owe him anything. I shouldn't have sex with him because he took me out to dinner, or I don't have to keep dating him if I don't want to, which is all perfectly true. You don't owe him a single thing, but you led him to believe by accepting the date that you had some interest in getting to know him, and you don't. You didn't.
Right.
So to me, what the so-called Tinder Swindler did was he did that, but at a higher level, right? If we were talking about $500 or $1,000, which is what a fancy dinner might cost at one of these high-end restaurants for a guy taking a woman out on a foodie date, this wouldn't have been a documentary, right? But because we're talking about pretty large sums of money, anywhere from $20,000 to like $140,000 that different women were conned out of, it's become a much more sensationalized story. But I really don't see much difference other than the amount of money between what this guy did,
the scale of it, yeah,
the scale of it, and what other women, again, not all women, of course, but what a lot of women today feel is perfectly natural. So I know I'm gonna get a lot of hate for that, but I think they're the same type of behavior, but just different in degree. So that's where I would start.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, when I was looking at it, I mean, I had watched it before, but then just watching it again, and I took notes on it. And the thing that really struck me is the very first girl, Cecilia.
Right.
She just kept going on about love and Disney movies and Beauty and the Beast, and
she seemed so happy about this dude. I was like, how could you be so happy about this dude
yeah,
taking your money? You know what I'm saying? Did
yeah.
she seem really happy about it?
And she was talking about wanted a prince. He seemed like a prince coming to save her.
Yeah.
And then she wanted to save him. she found out about him being in prison, the marks on his body. She wanted to save him. And I just felt like this guy, he was able to take these expectations that society is like, you know, infuses into women with these Disney princesses and such, and he's just able to weaponize this and
Yeah,
use
deep
this.
game. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, deep game. Just and I think it's I want to reiterate your statement from earlier. I do not condone this dude. This was some wrong ass shit. But
Yeah,
I'm watching it and I'm like, this guy is a freaking genius, and it's just a malevolent level of genius in how to manipulate people. Just incredible how he's able to do that. I mean, I can't get anyone. I'm like, hey, how's it going there? Like, screw you. I'm like, okay, but not the Tinder swindler. They kept saying he knew how to talk to people and he knew how to listen, because I'm sure he wanted those details. But
right.
each one of them was like, yes, he would listen. He was great to talk to. Like that incredible skill that he had could have been used for legit purposes, but instead he he used it for this. It's like, man, you were able to get that much money out of these women and just, you know, fuck them over. Just think what you could have done if you applied yourself to something legit.
Man, you have just said so much. There's so many points in there, man. Um, if I could
Yeah, please, please.
so many good things in there. So one, let me start with the last thing you said. He could have done so many other things with the skill set he had, his communication skills, right? And for our audience, if you listen to our last episode where we talked about Rihanna, I kind of went off on a rant on society and how society, is shaping people and children through overly sexualizing them and violence and different things like that. So that's an interesting topic to listen to, or discussion to listen to, and I think it applies here, right? He could have used those talents for so much more. Why didn't he? It's because our society, right, is focused on, and this is my man, I love 50, but what is it? Get rich or die trying. Get
Yeah,
money or die trying. What does that mean? That it means that the goal is to get paid, so you have status, you have women, you have a lifestyle, whatever. The substance of what you do with your life is not admired, right? That's not the point. The point is not how you make your money; it's that you get your money. This is the message that has been ingrained in society. And to be fair, 50 didn't start this. 50 learned, 50 Cent learned this
oh
from
sure, yeah,
society, right? And so that message, the message back to your Beauty and the Beast point, which great point. Cecilia mentioned that whole Disney princess fairy tale. And what is it? It's taking a beast, right? A monster. And through your love and your beauty as a princess, you turn him into a wonderful prince. And this is the message being delivered to young girls and young women throughout their lives. So what does that do? It aims them, it it pushes them, motivates them to find the bad guy, the bad boy, and wait, I can be the one to change him, right? So this is, I'm not saying it's the only reason, but it's a part of the root cause of why so many women end up in unhappy relationships and unhappy lives is they've got messages from childhood pushing them to find unsuitable partners, and
yes,
then they get destroyed like this. You know what I mean? So those just two good points you made. I want to expand on a little bit there, Jay.
yeah. Turn the frog into a prince, essentially.
Right, right,
Yeah, it's just, I mean, I kept going, and that was one thing I noticed too with Cecilia. They showed her Tinder, and she had 1,024 matches.
right.
Incredible. And it's like I looked at that and I just thought, look at the options that she has. She's been on this many dates. She's blonde. And that's one thing. It's very um I won't say odd, but I'm going to get into this. It's tough not to get into it when you come at it from a racial perspective. But he went
Yeah,
after these white, tall, blondish. The last one was, she kind of had brown hair. But the point is, he knew he needed these women to get money for him. Um,
right,
I was watching a 2020 special years ago where it's like blonde women are especially trusted, and at some point he knows he's got to ask these women to go ask for money for him, and who's
right.
going to get that money? Not the sister, that's for sure.
No,
He But when blonde Cecilia is like, hey, I need this money, they check her out, not very well, obviously, they check it out, but they give her this money. And I just really, I was really just struck by how he knew who to go to. The guy, I mean,
so
he was a fool in general, but in
yeah,
specific matters, he was no fool.
yeah. And let me, if I haven't been clear, because I was so specific about his threats, this is not a good guy. This is not a good human
No,
being,
no,
right? So let me. I'm going to be critical, generally speaking, of society and women and men also, but this is not a good person. So let me just be clear about that. I'm not, hyping him up in any way. Although he his game was deep. I can't lie.
his game was deep, but I mean, just the cold, like I said, malevolence was just
Yeah.
something like, damn,
But it goes
really?
back to my point, man. If you are coming from a background, which we all are to some extent, it's get money. It don't matter how you get money,
Yeah,
right? Just get money, man. And so when society is all bought into that, we all believe that to some extent. You know, this is what you're going to get. But here's the funny thing. Here's another road I'd like to go down with you, man. Is so you mentioned she had over 1,000 matches, and I also had notated that too when I was watching it. And my thought was, you probably had thousands of matches because she said she was on at that point in time she had been on Tinder for over 7 years, right?
yes.
She was relatively attractive, right? Um, she was like an IT consultant or something like that. So she's university educated, book smart, and I make that point specifically, book smart,
Book smart.
um,
Yeah,
relatively attractive, um, and had a little bit of money. She didn't have money, but obviously she was able to get
yeah.
qualified for a twenty
She was
thousand dollar
affluent.
loan,
Yeah,
right? So he was targeting them, and the reason I bring that back up is it's so funny because she had all these matches, no one worked out. Now she's 29 years old, and I'm just the points I'm making, audience is the points that she made herself during the documentary. She wasn't there for any hookups. Now that she's 29 and she's had thousands of matches, right? She's not there for hookups anymore. She wants something serious. Okay. She meets this guy. Now, it's no coincidence, right? That the guy is, she did the background on him. It was a false background, but as far as she knew, it was true that he's a billionaire son. He was paid, right? It's no coincidence that now she felt butterfly feelings with him, right? That she felt comfortable um, meeting him for coffee. If you watch social media these days, you've got a bunch of so-called dating gurus, women who say, "Don't you ever go on a coffee date with a man or a walking date. If he doesn't, you know, spend money on you, for a fancy dinner, then he's not worth it." Da da da. But he asked her to meet for coffee, and she was glad to do it. Met him at a fancy hotel, had
yes.
coffee, then jumped on the jet, slept with him the first night, all those types of things, right? That she's not there for hookups. Now, what? Now, I'm not judging her for that. I know it sounds like I am, but I'm not judging her for that. She's an adult. She can live her life however she wants to, right? And I mean that sincerely. This is not like some kind of backhanded thing. She can do whatever she wants, but she said she's not there for hookups. So my question is, okay, why are you taking the actions that you're taking, right? You would normally meet some dude for coffee, right? That's not enough investment on his part. You would normally sleep with the guy on the first night. Why'd you do that? Well, because you thought you had caught a big fish. Let's be real about this, family. Let's be real about it. She thought she caught her a millionaire billionaire, right? And so she's going to break those rules for him. So this is where I try to flip it on its head. We call him the swindler, and he was a con man, or he still is. But she was going after him. Why? Because he had money. He wasn't a bad looking dude, but he wasn't no supermodel. You know what I mean? He had status, he had money, he had some swag because he knew how to talk to people and run the game and all that. But if that dude was an IT consultant making 75K a year, would it have played out this way? I don't think so. Right. So there's a mutual con game, so to speak, going on between men and women. If you go on social media today and type in like YouTube or whatever, um, as a woman, how to land a rich man, as a woman. There's all types of gurus, right? Women who tell you how to be a quote unquote gold digger, to do what this Tinder swindler was doing.
I
No
actually
one's
didn't know that.
Yeah, absolutely, man. No one's arresting them. No one's going after them. They're teaching women how to bag legitimate, big fish in terms of, high status, wealthy men. And do these women love these men? Nah, man. They want a certain lifestyle. So this is why I said we all got to be honest. This is a bad dude, no doubt. But women women are buying into the narrative that it's okay for them to use men also. And these women in this show are not they're not exempt from that criticism. So that's something that has to be discussed.
Yeah. Yeah. And I felt like she was kind of, I'm sure she felt bad. She felt like she'd been tricked and she felt bad, but she was trying to tell the reporter, like he was so friendly. He talked to me and he seemed like she was trying to just say this is why I did it, because not because of the money, but because we clicked. We clicked.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I want to move on to Pernilla, the second girl.
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's what I didn't quite get. So didn't she say that she had money at first? Or
Well,
she
she implied that she lived a certain lifestyle, right?
yes.
So I to me she looked like someone who she was older, right?
Yeah.
So I think she's probably a woman who has a nice career, making six figures, and had a decent little bit of money set aside. I don't think she was a millionaire or anything like that, but I would say she was probably making six figures and had saved a good bit of money because she had talked about she was going to buy an apartment.
Yes.
But I don't think she was paid. I just think she had a good job, a good salary, had invested, retirement savings enough to buy an apartment and take some nice vacations. But she wasn't rich. She didn't have money to dispose of.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, I liked her. She said something that really stuck with me. There was a point where she said, with regards to personality, you can either be a battery charger or a battery drainer. And
Mm-hmm.
Simon was a battery charger. He charged
Yeah.
her up, and it clicked with me, even outside the bounds of this documentary, is that there's some people, man, you are excited to see them. They make things easier, make things excited, and there's other people who just drain you. And it has nothing to do with the Tinder swindler itself, but I liked that quote she said.
Yeah. And I think
And
I think that's the truth, man. That some
yeah,
people charge you up and some people drain you, and you need to manage those relationships
oh
carefully.
yeah. And I found that the charging type, man, they can be few and far between sometimes.
Yes. No,
Sometimes
it
you're
is.
just around a bunch of drainers.
Yeah. No
Um,
doubt.
yeah. And so what the I'm going through my notes, and there's a part where what I didn't get the first time I watched is that he's talking to Pernilla, and then remember that attack came, the attack where he
Right.
sends it to Cecilia. Oh, I was assaulted, and the bodyguard, I can't remember the bodyguard's name, but the bodyguard was assaulted. Remember the pictures in the video
Yeah.
that were sent, and then she's like, oh my god, and he's like, look, I need money, and she gives him some money, and then she what happened first? So then he told her to meet him somewhere and bring what, $100,000 or something, or 25K, or she brought
Um,
some cash.
I think it was Cecilia, and she
Yeah.
brought, I think, 20. It was either 20 or $40,000 initially,
Yeah.
but
So
she
okay,
continued to give him money over time. But
she
that was
continued to
the
give him
first
money.
one. Yeah.
Why I'm bringing up Pernilla is that um, she met Simon. Cecilia met Simon. She brought the cash. Then remember they made up some more BS, like, oh, my enemies, they're here, my enemies. We
Yeah.
got to go. You got to go home. And they kicked her out. Then he took that money. The next thing they showed with Pramila, like, oh, all of a sudden Simon was here in Stockholm. And it didn't click with me before, but I'm like, wait a minute. He just took that money from Cecilia, went immediately to Stockholm to spend that money and
Well,
kick it
he was
with
running a
Pramila.
Ponzi scheme. He was
His
taking from
Ponzi
one woman
scheme.
for another woman. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, oh man, this mofo is a trip. And then here's the thing about Cecilia, the Amex situation. I mean, you're actually a financial guy, so you understand this stuff of linking this Amex. Then he maxes it out. Remember, he has the nerve to be upset. He's like, Cecilia, why is the card not working? What is this shit? That's literally what he wrote. What is this shit? Why is it not working? Dude, you're a scammer, and you have the nerve. He's like going off on her. But the Amex thing. Remember when she finally had to call Amex, and by that point she had owed what, 250K on that, because he had
Well,
been running it.
it was between Amex and then she took out personal loans, which would be
She took
high
out
interest
personal loans,
loans. Yeah, those quick
and
loans.
then and then Amex came out to her because that's what they're going to do when you owe that much money.
Yeah.
They came out to her and they immediately said, okay, that's the guy who's a swindler. He's the guy who's a scammer. Well, she said she worked for his company. Why didn't they catch that? I mean, they seemed to know who he was.
Well, so I think so just for the audience, if you haven't seen the documentary or it's been a while, Simon, wove together this dramatic story that roped this girl in, and she got an Amex card in her name, but authorized him to use it, and it kept getting declined at a certain point. So he had to have her increase the credit limit on the card so he could use it. And in order for her to increase the credit limit on the card, she has to use her finances. Well, she didn't make enough money to justify that big of an increase. So he, quote unquote, hired her into his company, saying she had a certain salary so that she could get the card amount boosted. So, legally speaking, she participated in the fraud, albeit unknowingly. But I will make this point, and you may have people may have missed it at the very end. Her and Cecile and Pernilla are both still repaying the debts that they owe. Let me say that again. All the loans and the credit card charges and stuff that went to Simon, Cecile and Pernilla are still repaying those debts. So what does that tell you? It tells you legally they are responsible for it, even though Amex and other people know that this man was involved in it. Those women freely lent the money to him, and he hasn't, now he's gone to jail, but for other charges, he hasn't served any time related to the money that they lent to him. So that's just an important point in terms of people saying, "Oh, he defrauded them." I mean, he definitely tricked them, but from a legal and financial perspective, they are still responsible for those debts.
There was no charges brought against him for that stuff. It's not even
Right.
that he like beat charges. He didn't even have charges brought against him.
Correct.
And I'm not sure if, because I did look up some of these things, and it seemed to me that I saw that all three of the girls, which Eileen was the last one, and they started a GoFundMe. And the GoFundMe, they claimed that they were looking to raise 800,000 US dollars. And they only got 220,000 US dollars. I think it was 186,000 pounds, British
Yeah.
pounds, which turned into 220,000 US dollars. So I'm thinking that actually Pernilla was the one who was best off. She only owed 40K. She was only out 40K.
Yeah.
Eileen, the last one, Eileen was my girl too.
Yeah, she was
Eileen
my
was,
girl. We got to
yeah,
talk about her.
she was no joke. She ended up owing 140K that she was the one who said she was defrauded. She's the first one in the film to say I was defrauded. And so she owed 140K. Cecilia was the one in the worst shape of all.
Yeah.
And I don't think that GoFundMe covered her debts, but it could have covered the other two.
Well, you got to understand too, their interest charges on those debts are probably ridiculous. So it could easily be double whatever they borrowed. It could easily be double, triple that now. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And I wonder if something like Amex, you know, she signed for it, but it may be a PR situation where they might be like, look, you owe 250K, give us 150K and we'll call it even. Because it's really bad PR, despite the fact that she was the one who signed for it. But let's talk about Eileen. She she went undercover on a
That's my
mission.
girl. Mad
I was
mad respect for
cracking.
her.
I have mad respect for Eileen. And she was like, she said, if you weren't such a piece of shit, I would feel sorry for you.
Yo, set it up for the people, man. Give them a little
Oh,
background if they haven't seen it.
okay. So Eileen, well, after we got through with Pernilla and with Cecilia first, Pernilla next, then those two kind of discovered each other, and that is when actually we kind of need to back up because Cecilia went to um, VG, the VG newspaper in where was she from? Norway?
Right, Norway. Mm-hmm.
Anyway, and VG put the Tinder Swindler article out. They put it out, put his face out. And then we cut over to Eileen, who actually at that moment is on a plane. She's about to go on her way to meet this dude.
Right.
And then she sees the Tinder Swindler article, his face, and she contacts him like, what is this? What is this? And then immediately she goes on airplane mode because she's on a plane, and she's reading this stuff and she's seeing what he is, and he tries to run his game on her, but by this point when the lights come on, the game doesn't really work, and she knows she's been screwed over. And yeah, so then Eileen, she wants to get something back from him. And I think the best part of it was that she decided that she was going to sell his designer clothes,
right.
because after the Tinder Swindler came out, the money stopped flowing in for Simon. And that was the thing about these Ponzi schemes. Once he stopped the flow from these other women, he had nothing saved. He had nothing. And he was begging her for money. So then when she was there, where did they meet? And he went to a plastic surgeon. They met
right.
somewhere.
She was from Prague, so they met in Prague, and he was trying to get plastic surgery.
Well, because she was on her way to meet him somewhere. Was it Prague? And then they were there, and yeah. So then he went to the plastic surgeon. Then she said, "I had to watch this pathetic man crying because he couldn't get his plastic surgery. He was going to continue the scams. He just wanted to change his face." So then she decided she was some kind of she wasn't a designer, right? But she was. I can't remember.
She said she was in the fashion industry,
She
so she knew all about high fashion. Yeah.
Yeah, so she knew that those clothes were worth something. And this is the part where she really just became the boss bitch.
Yeah, she was a G. She was a straight G.
A G, man. She set it up. She was like, "Hey, I can sell those clothes for you. Let me meet you." And then, she got there and she was like, "This is the dumbest plan ever. I actually got to meet this dude." And just think of the courage it took. She didn't know what this dude was capable of. He could have killed her. He could have done anything. If he was willing to do this, he easily could have done whatever.
Yeah.
But she managed it, and she stroked his ego, and she played the long game, and he gave her the clothes. The funny thing was she was angry that he didn't help her load up the clothes in the car. I burst out laughing. She's like, "He didn't even help me." Eileen. But then she's selling the clothes on eBay, and she made a little piece of change off of it, right? It wasn't enough.
She probably should have waited because, I don't know if she knew if a documentary was coming out, because what I was thinking is, damn, if you should have sold them as these were the clothes of the Tinder Swindler, you probably could have got, a grip more. People want that kind of memorabilia.
I didn't think of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're right, man. She should have done that. But yeah, and then she was the one, because he was still contacting her after he finally realized.
Oh yeah, he was pissed.
Yeah, he
And
was
this is where he was
pissed.
making threats and stuff.
Oh, those threatening voicemails. I mean, those were some chilling voicemails to get. Remember when he called Cecilia's mom's house? Man, that was
Yeah, no, that's what
again
I'm saying. He
chilling.
he 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 was going way over the line. So that's all the kind of stuff like, he should get clapped for that.
Oh
But
yeah. Yeah, man. This dude was dangerous, man. And she put herself in that situation, but she played it like you said, she played it like a G, bounced with his clothes, sold his shit, was able to put something down on her debts. And then she was the one, he contacts her, he's like, I'm going wherever he said he was going. And then she just quickly jumped on, like, wait, I gotta find that flight he's on. And I was really impressed that she found it and she sent that shit over to Interpol, like, hey, he's getting off this plane. And I was like, Eileen, do
yeah.
that shit.
And all the women, including Eileen, deserve a little bit of criticism for like, okay, like I can see helping someone out a little bit, but the sums of money that they gave this man and continually just ridiculous, right? So I do give them some criticism for that, but some softer criticism because I can understand, man, when you really care for someone and you want them to be all right, I can see, I'm not gonna beat them up too much for that,
I
right?
mean, yeah, because it doesn't matter what you have to do. Like when if you really care about someone, you don't think about the consequences to yourself. You're
Yeah.
just trying to help them.
But the thing, and we've mentioned a bunch of times here, Eileen was just once she realized what the truth was, I think she just showed her true quality, her true character as a woman, and her, like you said, her courage and her smarts. And I wrote down a note. I was like, damn, that's a woman you could build with. You know what I'm saying? Like
Oh
she
yeah,
she can make some things happen. I was extremely impressed with her. So even though I'm sure she's a little bit ashamed about putting herself in that position, um, it was done from love, and she recouped from it, man. So I was impressed.
and I mean, we have to give a little bit of props to Cecilia as well. So actually, all three of them, because Cecilia was the one who got the ball rolling when she said, "Who's
Yeah,
going to stop this guy? I have to stop him." And she went and put all her business out there, knowing she was going to be humiliated.
true, true. Props
True,
to
and she
them. Going for
props,
them.
and let's not forget that Pernilla went to meet this dude and go
Yeah.
undercover and get this guy. And they tried to get him there again, not knowing what he was capable of. Is he going to kill her? What is he going to do? And but I mean, Eileen was the boss G. But I think they all deserve some props. And there were so many people. I mean, I know a lot of people who were ruthless against these girls. Like, hey, they got what they deserved,
Yeah.
and it's easy to think that way at first. It really is. You got what you deserve, but I think that it's like there's got to be room for some human empathy somewhere.
So
Because
here,
yeah,
if I can just get on that point, man,
yeah,
because um, so think of it this way: you're a wealthy multimillionaire. You've made mad money. You meet this woman, and damn, you just fall for her. She's beautiful. She's great to be with. Whatever. And you're doing business around the world or whatever. And you like come into my life. I love you. She says she loves you, and all that kind of stuff. And you're traveling around. You're flying first class. First class flights. You talk about like $10,000 a piece round trip. So you're flying first class. You're eating at the fanciest restaurants. You're going on these great vacations, expensive resorts, buying her all kinds of gifts and jewelry and all this kind of stuff. Right? You dating for like a year, and if you live in that lifestyle, you might spend $250,000 on it. Now we can't imagine that. We don't live that lifestyle, but for them, that's nothing, right? You might spend $250,000 in a year on a woman that you love like that.
sure.
Let's say at the end of that year or 2 years, she says, you know what, I'm gonna go date someone else. And you're like, well, hold on. I bought you jewelry. I bought take you on the finest vacations, fancy dinners, expensive trips. I spent a ton of money. I thought we were going to be together. No, I don't think we're right for each other. I'm gonna move on. Now tell me what the difference is between that woman who was just bouncing from one mark to the next, and this guy who did it in a calculated way. You know what I'm saying? That sort of thing happens also at different levels of the game in terms of the finances. And
Yeah.
so for me, I don't condone his behavior. I think it's weak, right? I think it's weak behavior. You shouldn't be conning anybody like that. I think it's wrong. My real problem with him is the threats of violence and stuff like that towards the women. But that behavior that he exhibited, I'm not saying excuse it, but I'm saying that's happening every day at different levels of the game, whether it's a foodie call to gold diggers like I'm gonna marry this 80-year-old millionaire and when he dies, I'm gonna take half. You know,
Yeah.
it's all different levels of the game. So the only thing that annoys me is when society says, "Oh, look at these terrible men." Hey, man, this behavior is found everywhere, right? And it's not just guys doing it. And ain't nobody making documentaries about the what million and one booty calls that are happening this year alone. You know what I mean? So that's the only point I wanted to make about that.
Yeah,
So,
it is true. The gold digging woman, um, ripping off the billionaires or millionaires or whatever. That's kind of a staple of society now,
but it's not
and
even
has
really quote unquote gold diggers anymore.
yeah,
It's natural behavior for like so Cecile, we talked about it. Her 1,000 matches. And let me ask you, of all those thousands of matches that she's had over the last 7 years or whatever, how many dates do you think she went on with guys that she was like, I don't really know how I feel about it, but I'm gonna give him a quote unquote chance. So so she could have a nice time out. You know what I'm saying? I think that's such common behavior now that maybe at 29 for her, maybe that's not what she does anymore. But when she's 23, 25, whatever, you think they don't go out on dates with guys, not even millionaires, but just guys, just to have some fun, just to have some entertainment, but really have no interest in the person? I mean, that's just as fraudulent. It's just a different level, different scale of it. You know, I think we just have to examine that type of behavior on all fronts.
yeah. She had when I saw she had 1,000 matches over. I assume it's over those 7 years. And it's just like, man, I don't know. It's like, have you ever used Tinder? It's like, I remember when Tinder was like super hot and everybody was talking about it. Remember, I downloaded it. I was like, okay, let me see what's going on here. Okay, no matches, no matches, no matches, no matches. It's like I
Yeah,
got this match. I was like, oh right, man, I got one match. Let's do this. So I started talking to this chick, and I'm like, hey, yeah, I'm glad we matched, and let's talk. Maybe we can meet up and do something. And this chick was like, hey, do you need help with your mortgage? And I
yeah.
was like, huh, what? And she was like, yes, go to this site and we can help you with your mortgage. I said, son of a bitch.
Well, recent research is saying that somewhere, like 80 to 90% of women are only going after like 1 to 10% of the men out there, on the dating profile. So they have all this data because
Yeah.
online dating is so prevalent. So what that means is that guys that fit into that, either you are high status, high wealth, model type looks or whatever it is, um, those guys are getting 80 to 90% of all female attention. And so
Yeah.
that 1,000 matches that Cecile got, I don't think that was over 7 years, man. That could be a week for her. That could be a day. She was like I said, relatively good looking. I mean, someone like that in today's dating climate is probably getting thousands of matches at
Well, I'm sure
least a
she get
day.
1,000 hits, but this was 1,000 matches. This was who she matched with. So I'm sure
Oh,
she was getting
who she
even
like?
more than that. Yeah.
Yeah. Gotcha,
If
gotcha.
I'm reading that right, it was a
Yeah,
thousand
no, you're
matches.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah, I'm sure she was getting bombarded and she was just swiping left on those mofos. But that's
Like
fine.
I ain't
That's
got
fine.
time for this.
Yeah,
I'm
I
trying
got
to get
time.
swindled.
Oh, yeah, yeah, I'm trying to get on the jet, private jet. But let's just bring this back to the reason we decided to watch this was we did the true crime episode, which all you listening was a couple of weeks ago, or was it last week or a couple of weeks ago? We did a true crime episode, and we were just talking about that we didn't really care for the murder and the violence and the horrible mutilations and things, and it's like it's not something that we could really see ourselves listening to regularly. And we all
Right,
brought up the Tinder Swindler, and I feel like this was made to be very entertaining and very upbeat, even despite this is still something horrible that happened to these women, but
right.
it was made in such a way that, the music, and it was made to be entertaining, the graphics and such that were popping up. And I think on a true crime level, this is probably the best I could do. I really don't want to see bad things happening to bad people regularly anyway.
Right.
But when it comes to the true crime, it I guess I don't know what to say. It's just not that they need to dress it up. It still happens.
But this type of thing, I think where you're going with it, Jay, is that you know, you can actually learn something, a lot of things from watching it, right? It sparks obviously an interesting discussion, and there's different perspectives, and we can, a lot of points people will agree or disagree with us on, but there's a lot that can be learned about society, about dating dynamics, about technology, all those things that we can it's valuable to watch beyond the entertainment factor. And I think that's what part of what makes it maybe a little more appealing for me than your typical true crime, which is just like gory stuff, or just horrific things that happen to people. And it's not like you're getting a whole lot out of it beyond the entertainment factor. At least for me, this
Yeah,
this was more
at least on
enjoyable
this,
on
these
that
these
front.
people are still alive. They're still healthy.
Right.
Financial disasters like this, I mean, are still something you can recover from,
Yeah.
even though it may be difficult. But you're not mutilated. You're not horribly disfigured or something, or even dead. So I think that they were able to dress it up as kind of a more cutesy documentary, knowing that the end result was something that could be rebounded from.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I think we're getting close to the end here, but I think that I'm glad we talked about this, because it's just I read an article where saying that Americans fell for $1 billion worth of these scams in 2022.
Yeah.
And man, I just wish that people were more on their guard, man. It's just,
Yeah, and I mean that's a good point. I'm glad you raised that, because as critical as I've been, I think fairly, but in certain points, I do think that this is a place for law and governments to step in. You know, he shouldn't be able to get away with that type of behavior, right? It should not only be frowned on in society; there should be legal ramifications for that. And whether it's you know conning a young woman who believes she's in love, or conning a millionaire man who thinks this woman loves him and she's just trying to marry him and divorce him for half, or those folks who try to scam old retired people out of their checks.
oh yeah,
I think there should be severe penalties for all of that, man, because imagine the not only the financial damage but the psychological and emotional you know weight that these women and their families have to carry, and you know
yeah,
dealing
that's
with
real
threats and
too. It's
stuff like
real.
that. Yeah, it's painful.
So I think on that note, we'll just go ahead and get out of here on that downer, and just on a downer, you guys. But
Don't get
well,
Tindled and don't get swindled, folks.
yeah, don't get back on Tinder, and watch your backs, man. What? But anyway, we're gonna get out of here for now, and we'll see you guys on the next Weekend No Show, man. Let's say goodbye.
Peace out, fam.